After 4 months of content drought, Chivalry II has finally gotten a fresh update. In this video we will have a look at the reinforced update and all the changes and new additions it has brought to the game. At the end of this video I also want to talk a bit about the current state of Chivalry II and where the game might go from here. So without further ado, let's get into it. Starting with the biggest news, Chivalry II is now available on the Xbox and PC Gamepass. For those who don't know, Gamepass is a Microsoft subscription service that gives you access to a catalog of video games. The service currently has more than 20 million subscribers, so it is to be expected that this move will bring much needed players to the game and also introduce many of them to the medieval slasher genre. Content-wise, the 2.6 update brings a new map, new customization options, a new weapon, an updated game mode playlist, weapon, combat and map balance changes, and some misc changes. Cross-platform parties have been pushed back again and are not included in this update. Hippodrome is a brand new team deathmatch and free-for-all map. A beautiful arena in Ascandir that is mainly made for jousting. The visuals are on par with the high standards that Chivalry II has for its maps. Personally, I'm not the biggest fan of the horse combat in general, but nonetheless, it is a nice addition to the map pool for those who like this kind of gameplay. Hippodrome is now playable in the new Mounted Warfare matchmaking playlist, the 40-player mixed queue, as well as the server browser. With the reinforced update, horse and no horse variant maps are now separated. Thornbanner finally added the two most recent team objective maps, Ascandir and Baldwin, with a no horse variant to the 64-player queue. Furthermore, there are now horse versions of Rathelm and Aberfell that have been added to the Mounted Warfare queue. Having 64-player versions of these TO maps was strongly requested by the community and in my opinion should have been patched months ago. Next we have the probably most interesting new addition to the game, the Cathars. The Cathars, a new weapon for the Ambusher class, is the first dual-wield weapon in Chivalry II. It not only looks pretty cool, but it also has some different mechanics than existing weapons. The Cathars do not flinch on hit, meaning they do not interrupt your opponent's swings. Similar to the spear, they do not have horizontal strikes, but instead another stab. The special attack is very fast and can hit twice. The jab is a headbutt instead of a punch. The overall damage output is pretty low if you don't factor in the backstab multiplier from the Ambusher perk. From playing around with them for like half an hour, I think the Cathars are pretty weak. They're quite unique and kind of fun to use, but they seem to be reliant on the backstab multiplier to put out decent damage. On the bright side, the Ambusher class got a small buff this patch and now has a bandage instead of the relatively useless quiver. He also has now a perk that lets the final hit always be a killing blow instead of downing the opponent. Next on the list, we have new customization options. The reinforced update brings a new cosmetic armor DLC called the King's Edition, which grants 1 Mason and 1 Agatha Knight armor set, some gold and crowns, and a surrender flag. The DLC is available for €9 or $1. I know selling paid DLCs in a non-free-to-play game is quite controversial. My opinion is that it is fine to sell some cosmetics for a few bucks here and there, as long as it doesn't get out of hand. Besides the paid DLC, Tenosian customization got some love, and they don't share light and heavy armor sets anymore. So that means 2 new body sets and 2 new helmets with variations. And there are 4 skins for the newly added Cathars, which look pretty cool. Next we have some weapon and gameplay balance changes. The Highland Sword got a damage nerf and has now an even slower windup. Both the one-handed and two-handed spear got a slight combo speed nerf, as well as less knockback on hit. Overall, pretty small and insignificant changes on the weapon front here. The biggest balance change of this patch has been made to team switching. Team switching and stacking has been the #1 complaint in the Chivalry II community for some time now. With this update, team switching restrictions are now active as soon as the map starts loading, and switching from that point on is only possible if the team you want to switch to has at least 2 players less than your current team. This is also an issue that should have been tackled much sooner. The patch notes also list dozens of bugs and exploit fixes regarding maps, horses, and general combat. I will leave a link to it in the video description below in case you want to check these out in detail. Some misc changes that are worth mentioning are: consoles finally got an FOV slider. Still no custom key mapping, but instead some improvements to the default controller layout. I'm not a controller player, so I can't really comment on how much that fixes existing issues, but I also don't see why it would be impossible to allow custom control schemes. Alright, so with the patch changes now out of the way, let's talk about the current state of Chivalry II in general. The Chivalry II player numbers took a nosedive within the last few months. We can only see Steam player numbers, but there is no reason to believe that the tendency on console is any different. I think the step to add the game to the Xbox and PC Gamepass was necessary to keep the game alive. That, or going free to play. The question is, what causes this rapid player count depletion that we can not only see since the Steam launch? This was to some degree also apparent during their first year on the Epic Game Store, although the game had many different other problems back then too. I think at the end of the day, Chivalry II has less replay value than Tornbanner was hoping. While the casual friendly combat system helps to bring new players into the game, it doesn't really seem to do a good job at making players stay. For me, Chivalry II is similar to a movie. You play it, you enjoy it, and then you have seen it. There's not much to play or grind for. There is neither a cosmetic endgame grind, as everything can be bought for a few bucks, nor a true skill ceiling grind. There is also no roleplay potential. I think the game could have benefited heavily from modding tools combined with private servers on release, when the hype was still strong. In Mortal, private servers were absolutely crucial for community building, and this sense of being part of a small server community is completely missing in Chivalry II. Surely there are some other factors contributing to the player decline, like the team stacking and server issues, and also the delayed cross-platform parties. But I think the lion's share of the dwindling player base is caused by game design that doesn't offer enough replayability. See, even if a new content update comes out and add, let's say, a new map and a new weapon, it doesn't really make the game feel fresh and new. The added content is a nice experience for a few hours, but hardly adds any long-term replay value. But anyway guys, that's it for this patch overview. Let me know in the comments what you think of this update. Will you jump back into Chivalry for this, or are you still religiously playing the game? If you enjoyed watching, then please leave a like and consider subscribing for future medieval slasher content. As always, thank you all for watching and see you soon.